Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning. Yeah, and we are doing a talk about ambitions and pain. And I think we talked about this is more like a fireside chat than we don't have any PowerPoints or anything like that. And maybe I should introduce myself. My name is Jacob. I work as a journalist in Denmark on a publication called Computer World. We write about technology and the IT sector and how technology impact businesses and society. And Karen, you work as an architect?
Yes, my name is Karen Braitmayer. I'm an architect by training. I run a small company that consults with other architects in the U.S. about making projects more accessible to people with disabilities. And I think we're going to talk today a little bit about, we've heard so much about pain and the impact that pain has, but we're going to talk a little bit about how one lives your life with pain. Not necessarily how to get rid of it, but it's there, but how do we soldier on, I guess?
Yeah, and having your own company, and is that a decision that was influenced by the need to manage pain? And yeah.
So I think I think it might have been a subtext. I made my decision to go into my career, architecture, because I love to make things, and then in the back of my mind, I thought, well, if I ever had a break, I could do this job laying down. Like I could, put my computer up on a screen, and I could do this. I've never had to do that, but it was a thought in the back of my mind. Firm ownership. The reason I chose to do that was in part because I wasn't very good at climbing the quote-unquote corporate ladder, and I wanted to do things my own way. So I thought, well, I'll just do this myself. But it did serve it has served to provide me with flexibility in my workday. So when I worked solo, nobody knew I had a doctor's appointment on Thursday at 2, right? I just went and did it, and if the phone rang and I wasn't there, oh well. Now I have employees, and I feel a little bit less comfortable about just flipping out of the office any old time. But on the other hand, yeah, I'm the boss. So, Jacob, what about you in your choice of career?
Yeah. In the beginning of my career, I also worked as a freelancer, and I was my own boss. But I think that wasn't so much of a choice, but more than it was right after the financial crisis, and the job market wasn't that good. But I enjoyed having the opportunity to plan my own day, and I could sleep in and work at night if I wanted that. But I also felt, the insecurity of being my own boss, and I was a freelancer actually for the company I'm employed at now, but they could just, rip the contract from one day to another, and then I would be out of job. And I think it even caused a little bit of anxiety, because I knew that with a disability, it is hard to get a new job. But today, I'm also lucky that my employee is really flexible. So on Monday, I go to physiotherapy, and I come in later, and that's fine. And if I have to go to the hospital, that is no problem, because they also know that I don't mind working in the weekend if that's necessary, or staying longer. So yeah.
So in the United States, we talk a lot about how people with disabilities are underemployed, that there are not enough. The percentage of people with disabilities who are employed is much, much lower than the average population. I think there are a lot of drivers, though, for being employed. Certainly, health insurance in the U.S. is largely driven by employment. I don't. Is that the same in your country?
No, no, no. We have free hospital care and everything, and that's not tied to the workplace. But some workplaces have their own health insurance that are better than the public ones. But I know we have it at my workplace, but I can't be a part of it because they don't want to insure someone with a disability. So yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but I would like to know, when you are your own boss, what do you do when you have a bad pain day?
So there are days when things are not going quite right. I'm not having a great health day, and then I do just work from home. I know. So there's a lot of debate, I think, in the adult OI community about how much you should be employed. Like, can you work part-time? Do you want to work full-time? Do you not want to work at all? And I think those are such personal, in my opinion, personal choices. I love my job, and I have a very hard time not getting involved in stuff. So, I'm at an age where retirement is looming, and I've said to my family, I should just retire, and they kind of roll over laughing, like, ha ha, because I can't. My daughter said, if you were ever at home, you would just end up working on other things, So that's my personality. But I do think you have to take into consideration your individual, like, energy level and all that stuff. What about you?
Yeah, I think the way I feel pain, it's not like, it's rarely, like sharp, acute pain. It's more, it's more subtle. It's tension in the back and the neck and the shoulders. So it's mostly that. Maybe sometimes I'm a bit unwell at work, and also it can influence my sleep. So maybe I have a night with bad sleep, and I come to the office and standing in front of the coffee machine very tired. And but one of the things I've been thinking about is that it's not. I rarely tell my coworkers and my boss that I feel that way. I just power through it, and I think that maybe I should be better at, telling my coworkers and my boss if I feel unwell. Yeah, and I think that's because I want to project an image in the workplace of being strong, and I spoke with one of my bosses, telling him that I have to do this talk, and he said, well, Jacob, the thing about you is that you are always strong, and you always, insist that you are no different than other people. And I thought about it. Well, maybe I should also, be open about when I'm not feeling strong. Yeah.
I second your comment. That's really a good thing. I think I know we need to finish up here, but I think one of our last questions was, did we ever face discrimination based on the possibility that we would be in pain, and therefore would that prevent us from sharing that information?
Yeah. and I think that some people, people often assume things about our health. Maybe they assume we are strong and not like, or maybe they assume that we have more pain than other people, and I think that, and therefore it's a good idea to be open about how you feel. And I don't know, have you ever faced discrimination and been aware of it?
You asked me this before, and I had kind of thought about it. I feel like I have faced discrimination as a person with disability, but not necessarily related to pain.
And I think that's the same way with me, and it comes in different. There's the kind of discrimination that you don't really know about, but you send job applications and you don't get any responses, and you can it's obvious because there's some kind of discrimination, and then there's I remember I was once at a job interview, and I actually thought I got the job, but I didn't, and I called the company afterwards, and the guy who interviewed me was like, it's not because I have anything against people with disabilities, but I think, there's some functions that it will be difficult for you to do, and so it happens,
Yeah. Well, I could go on and on about how much I want to encourage folks out there, young people especially with disabilities, to join the design professions, because I think you have the greatest opportunity to impact our environment if we include people with disabilities at the table for all the decisions, design, employment, you name it. So let's encourage all of our young people with OI to look at how they can influence the world. And I really believe that employment is such an important part of our personality. It gives us the opportunity to do good in the world. So yay, rah, rah, getting a job. So thank you. I think we're at time. Yeah, right. Thank you very much.
Do we have time for like a quick question or two?
Oh.
Is that okay? We do. You have 2 minutes. You did very well, Karen.
I thought we only had 10 minutes. Sorry.
So we'll
Are there questions?
does anybody have any questions?
Because if they're not, Jacob and I could totally fill the time.
Yeah. That's all right. We'll take. No, wait. There's a question.
Not really a question, but sort of a statement. When I was 70 years old, I told to my osteologist, well, now I should diminish or stop my activities. And he said, oh, no, first of all, you have a lot of energy. And second, you will suffer pain the whole day. So I think this was not coming up really, that if you have a fascinating activity, you forget or you can forget your pain. And I was very astonished that an osteologist of Switzerland told me what I just said.
Yeah, and we actually spoke about that. We met for a cup of coffee in Copenhagen a few days ago, and we also talked about this, that if we didn't work, would we feel more or less pain? And I think I definitely believe that if I didn't work, I would have more time to worry about stuff and feel, oh, is my leg unwell, and am I doing worse than yesterday? But there's also, and yeah, it's about balance, because I can also work too much, and then I get more pain. Yeah.
So on that happy note, we all need to have a job. Don't work too much, work just enough. There we go.